I don't know the exact stats on Friday the 13th and how often they occur, but I think it's very fitting that we have a Friday the 13th in October.
Yes.
Happy
It's
Friday
awesome.
the 13th,
Heck yeah.
everybody. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. Remind me to never do that again. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. This, of course, is a live edition, once again, of the Southside Beat, as we are every Monday through Friday from 3 to 3:30-ish Eastern, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I don't know if next Friday we're going to have a show because I will be traveling for Pitt, but we will see. We'll see what goes on. The next couple of Fridays, I will be on the road.
If not, everybody can just join me and really take over the co-host chair.
Right.
And so I have an episode much like what we're going to do today. Today it's listen, it's the last day of the bye week, right? And because obviously we're going to the weekend, and then when we come back Monday, there will have been a locker room availability most likely. Yes. It'll be back to a normal week. We'll kind of jump back in. So here on this one, we're just going to really rely on you guys asking questions. It doesn't always have to be football related. Obviously, this is a football and Steelers show, so absolutely that's our priority, is to talk Steelers with you guys. But if you want to ask an off-the-wall question, by all means, ask it. And yes, your favorite barber is right. Touch the like.
Please
like subscribe.
This.
We really appreciate it all the time. We do also do our best to try to be in the comments after the show so that we're also responding there. So thank you guys so much for all your support. We really appreciate it.
We'll go right into it now. Alan asks, now listen, Steelers,
burning questions right here, man.
Like Chris said, Steelers are the priority, but nothing's off limits. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not everything has to be Steelers related. Yeah. Alan asked, what's for dinner tonight? He asked me specifically what's for dinner tonight. Now, those that follow me on Twitter and those that maybe know me personally know that I love to be in the kitchen. I love cooking. I love throwing down behind the stove. I love making soups. I love making sauces. I love getting into it. However, I have some leftover soup that my mother graciously cooked and packed and prepared for me. So all I have to do is chuck that in a pot, heat some, egg noodles up, and I'm good to go tonight. So I told Chris before we got on today, I am making today as low effort as I possibly can on all fronts.
It's a bye week, man. And
Chris,
it is a bye week. What am I having for dinner? Well, after we are done with this show, obviously we have to, get post-production done so that's out on all podcast platforms, up on the site and everything like that. And then once I'm done with that, I'm taking my kids to the State Fair of Texas. My wife is getting off work a little early. She's going to meet us there. And so that means I'm going to have a lot of fried food tonight for dinner.
Okay.
Fried Frito pie, fried s'mores, and of course, fried Oreos. And it's really not, even though it's not my favorite thing, it's not going to the State Fair of Texas if you don't have a Fletcher's Corny Dog. So I will also be having one of those.
Can you elaborate on that for us non-Texans, please?
So like corn, they call them corny dogs here. I don't like it. It's a corn dog. So corn dog is, if you don't know what a corn dog is, it is like a hot dog on a stick that is dipped in like a cornbread mix and it's fried. You can eat with ketchup, mustard, whatever. But Fletcher's makes it's like the golden, it's the golden arches, or it's the top tier of corn dogs. It really is different. Like even the weenie inside is different. Like it just is. And so, but
like
obviously
teas with pierogies.
Yes. If you go to the State Fair of Texas, you have to not just have to have a corn dog, but you need to also just try all of the different things that they have. Fried butter, they have fried margaritas, they have fried everything. If it can be fried, it'll be fried.
I'm a big fan of the fried Oreos. I've never had a fried s'more. Now,
it was legit, man.
Now, my girlfriend
better than fried Oreos.
My girlfriend loves s'mores, but we like to just do them lazy. Like we'll put the broiler on in the oven and we'll just toast the marshmallow right on the cracker. It takes like 3 minutes in the oven, and it generally comes out pretty positive. But I've never thought to put one together and then you just batter it and deep fry it. I never thought to do that.
Swan, yes. So I hear. I'm not a corn dog connoisseur. I'm really not, but everybody that I know here, I've lived here for more than 2 decades. I mean, the fair is open, once a year, usually like last week of September into it's 3 or 4 weeks long. And every single time everybody goes, it's like, you have to have Fletcher's corn dogs. So
fire Matt Canada, not the real Matt Canada. He just wants Matt Canada fired. He or she asked if we can extend and go from 3 to 4 today. We'll go a little over today.
Yeah.
Chris has as he just announced, a commitment today.
It's not like I'm not like, oh my God, we have to leave it. At this point.
That fried food you got to get to, because you never know, they could run out. You never know.
Oh no, they won't. No, they won't. They have enough. They have enough to, dude. No.
All right. Chuck asks, just wondering what we should be looking for in this bye week. Should we be looking for a center or a cornerback? This, I'm assuming, comes on the scope of the Steelers in a potential trade. Now, yesterday, Chris, we floated the idea around what the Steelers could do, or maybe what they could be looking for.
Yep.
You suggested fortifying the secondary or the offensive line. I kind of zagged and thought nose tackle would be a good spot to look. But I think it's pretty clear that the Steelers, at least right now, are content with Mason Cole at center, and Kenny and him have a really good rapport and relationship. So I don't know how much they'll be in the center market. Cornerback is a little bit different, because with Joey Jr., that's one thing, but with Pat P and Levi Wallace underperforming, I think I'll just leave it at that to start the year. Maybe they could look to fortify that secondary as well.
Eric asked a really interesting question that I really enjoy kind of talking when I start talking X's and O's. Hey guys, do you think going to a 4-3 defense with bump and run coverage helps solve the run? I know our personnel doesn't support it now, but in the future. So the Steelers primarily run. Yes, their base defense is a 3-4 defense, but they primarily run out of their nickel package. And when they run out of their nickel package, they have 2 interior linemen, 2 edge rushers, 2 linebackers, and then 5 in the secondary. Right. So that is almost more of a 4-3 defense than it is a 3-4, because you don't have, 3-4, you have a nose tackle in the middle. You don't have that there. You have 2 interior, you have 2 on the interior, you have 2 on the edge up front. That's 4 down. Mm-hmm. Then you have 2 linebackers. And instead of having a third linebacker in what would be a normal 4-3 defense, you have somebody, a nickel, whether that's a third safety, whether that's a slot corner. Obviously, it depends on personnel, what the offense is doing. So it really almost is like the Steelers operate kind of out of both, right? Their nickel defense can serve almost as kind of a, obviously a modified 4-3 defense. Obviously, whenever they bring in the 3-4, it is like you have the nose tackle, you have the 2 defensive ends, and then you have your 2 edge, because they don't take any of the edge rushers off. So it really is more 5 up front. But I think that's kind of where football is today. It's more sub-package football than it is like, oh, we have a base defense, we're going to run out of that the majority of the time. So yeah, it really is more. Yeah. Mike kind of points it out. Yeah, they run a 5-2-4 on rundowns, 4-2-5 in pass. It kind of is like that. I'd say probably majority of the time, but obviously the Steelers try to disguise some stuff with, their sub packages and everything.
Good question from Swan. When you guys write a story for DK, how much direction do you get from DK himself? Ooh. I would say that depends. Yeah. I would say that depends. Now, there are times where Chris, myself, Alex, Taylor, whoever it is, Corey Geiger, will literally pitch a story and say, hey, I have this as an idea. This could be expansive. This could be something that, goes back into the time machine, so to speak, with history. This could be a lot of different things. And yes, DK surely does give us guidance at times on what to write. But then there is the flip side where we'll say, hey, I have an idea. Let's run with this. Case in point was, for me at least, on Sunday with the Ravens game. We talk after, and what do you think? What am I going to do? What is DK going to do? And we kind of sort it out from there. And my burning ideas, sometimes I just have ideas that are burning on my mind and I go with. And I think Chris knows this feeling all too well, where it's like, I'm hot on the trail on this. I want to do this. I feel strongly about this. And you really try to hammer it and make a point to write about it. And my big thing was Joey Jr. and the rookies and let the kids play in that whole thing. And I think it turned out pretty well. So I think it just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah, there's definitely give and take there for sure. He's not a dictator saying you're going to write this and only this. It's not. It really is give and take. We do have, I would say, quite a bit of freedom to kind of choose what we want to write, especially when I'm doing Chalk Talk stuff like that. That really is kind of my own thing. Of course, he will give direction and better ways to execute it so that I mean, he's obviously been in the business for a lot longer than I have, so he knows what works with readers, what doesn't work with readers. And so, Justin, thank you so much. Gifted five
gifted.
DK
Justin,
Pittsburgh
that's
Sports
tremendous.
On Steelers memberships. Really appreciate that. So,
Justin, that's tremendous. That's a great bye week present. We appreciate that very much. And on the flip side, not controversially, but conversely, I should say, Robert asks, has DK ever rejected your stories? I mean, there are times where we'll say something. It's like, hey, I feel like I should write about this. And he'll be like, nah,
Again, it's give and
but
take.
That happens.
It's give and take.
But to be completely transparent, that's not just DK. That's any
that's everywhere.
News director, sports director,
Everywhere.
City editor. I don't care what beat you have. If you're in sports or in news, or if you're covering court or whatever it is, that's anywhere that'll happen. So as a reporter, you're not going to bat 1,000 on
Justin.
week. Nice job.
Good job on the pun.
BUY week. He goes with BUY week. Chris Welsh asks, what changes or adjustments do you guys want to see made for this offense going into the remainder of the season? That could be a million different things, because as Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett talked about this week, before everybody kind of broke away from the South Side, everything has to be on the table for consideration for improvement. That is scheme. That is what plays are called when. That is what personnel is on the field when. That can mean a million different things. Now, I think the biggest adjustment in the change that the Steelers can make and that Matt Canada can tweak towards this playbook is, how do I phrase this? Pre-snap motion or pre-snap alignment. Crystal, thank you for the 5 gifted.
Generous today.
This is phenomenal, folks. Thank you guys very much for the gifted subs and the gifted memberships. If you got a gifted membership and you know that you got them, please give them a shout out and a thank you. But that's my best guess on that. My best answer on that is that I think more pre-snap disguising, pre-snap motion, lack of pre-snap motion in some cases could really help this offense.
Yeah. Honestly, I think this is just, I think the bye week is a really good opportunity, as we saw last season, for the team to really dig deep and really reflect on what's worked and what hasn't worked. Now, obviously, a lot more hasn't worked than what has worked, but there have been some plays that, if executed, they were there, right? So at that point, I'm like, again, I just because I wrote that, Deontay Chalk Talk yesterday, which somehow got some negative responses and people being like, yeah, Deontay is going to be a fix-all. I'm like, I never said he was a fix-all. I just said that it's going to help. But, I think about like plays in that game. If Kenny hits the throw to Deontay on that third down on the deep post, that whole drive is changed. That's most likely at least 3 points, because that would have been a big enough play to get them at least close to field goal range. So sometimes it's just, okay, here are the plays that were there. We need to execute them. And then it's also, here are plays that really best fit what we want to do. Let's work on those and do those better. So it's just, I think it's just more of that. I don't think there needs to be, they don't need to try to reinvent the wheel during the bye week. They didn't do that last year. They didn't try to completely overhaul things. They were like, let's find what we want to do. Let's get on the same page with those and really, really do our best to make sure that those plays that we want to run, that those concepts that we want to run are well executed. It worked last year. Let's see if it works this year.
Okay. Leverage asks, do you think Kenny is the guy for the Steelers' future? And can things like his pocket presence improve? Now, the biggest, I think, knock on Kenny Pickett's game, and Chris might agree with this, is he bails too early on the pocket. He'll have a clean pocket, and he'll bail too early. Now, he had this problem at Pitt. Like we talk about with all these rookies and all these second-year guys, there's a reason why, some players are drafted second, third, fourth round. There's some reason why Kenny Pickett, if you remember, was the first quarterback taken off the board when he was taken. Like, not a lot of people were crazy about that quarterback class, and Kenny Pickett had the strongest case to be the most pro-ready out of his class, and this was the big knock on him, was that he'll bail on clean pockets, he'll try to get on the run, and sometimes it's for better, like the fake slide against Wake Forest, and sometimes it's for the worse, like the play in Houston where he got hurt. So you take your lumps where you can get them in years 1 and 2, and to kind of reiterate what we talked about yesterday, you give a quarterback 3 years, and with Matt Canada being the offensive coordinator for 2 of those, it's kind of hard to overcome some of that. Crystal asks, what happened to Mark Robinson? I think the simplest answer is that he has 3 really good veterans ahead of him.
Yeah.
And this is not a knock on Mark Robb. Now, keep in mind, Mark Robb is in his second year. He was a running back in college. He had to convert positions.
He was a 7th-round pick.
As a 7th-round pick when he became pro. And if you watch the tape from the Raiders game, he made a couple of really good special teams plays. So I think right now, Mark Robb, by the way, Cole Holcomb has been better than any Steelers inside linebacker since Shazier was here. Like, I think it's arguable to make that case.
No, it's definitely there. Now, he's not on anywhere on Shazier's level.
No. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying
no. I know what you're saying. What you're saying.
Quan Alexander has been as advertised, and Elandon Roberts has held his own. So the Steelers just right now have 3 inside linebackers that are quite frankly better than what Mark Robb was. Jerry asks, do you guys think the bye week will cause this team to lose some momentum?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I don't know what momentum they had.
No.
Like, you can argue they should have lost the Ravens game, of course, with all the drops and all that kind of stuff. You know, they looked like crap against the Texans. They looked like crap against the 49ers. And if Nick Chubb doesn't get hurt, they could lose that game as well.
Yeah. I don't think that there's really any momentum to be lost. But I really think that the bye week, if anything, is exactly what this team needs. Obviously, you would love for the bye week to come a little bit later in the season, and that way your guys can get rested up a little closer to the playoffs. Because once they get back from the bye week, they don't have a break again. The only way that they would get a break again is if they were to become the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Right.
And I just don't think that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get another break, until the Super Bowl, if they make it that far.
Sure.
But and obviously that's probably not going to happen. But
Mr. Nick of Time asks, Pat P on his podcast, All Things Covered, talked about how Joey Porter Jr. was drafted for a reason. He alluded to Joey Porter Jr. taking the starting role over at some point. Will it be over the bye? I think contrary to what Terrell Austin said, which is no, not yet. When I asked him directly, I think Joey, while he might not be on the field for snap 1, as DK wrote about this in Friday Insider as well.
Crystal, thank you so much again.
Crystal, we appreciate the 5
more
gifted. You all are tremendous. This is
for
great
real
stuff to see on a bye week. It makes our Friday really that much better. This is so cool. While he might not be on the field for snap 1, I think Joey's snap count will be elevated compared to what we have seen. I think that's the short answer.
Really quick hitter on this one. Fireman Canada says, could James Daniels take over at center? I do think that if the Steelers don't address center and Mason Cole ends up becoming like even more like not playable, that is an option. I really do think that that's an option. I think he's probably best suited to play. I think James Daniels at center would work for sure. I know Nick Herbig could play center as well, but I do think of those 2 guys. I think Herbig works better at right guard and center Daniels slide over to center.
Brent asks, what team do you think will trade with us? Would it have to be a team not going anywhere this year, like Denver or the Raiders? You think Khan could pull something out of his crystal ball? I'll tell you one thing. I don't think the Bears are going to want to do business with the Steelers anytime soon. What happened last year? I would call Chicago. If I was Chicago, I would not pick the phone up after what happened last year, getting Chase Claypool for Joey Porter Jr. Will they make a trade? Who's to say? Like, I feel like the NFL trade deadline is so hit or miss because, like, baseballs, they call it the hot stove for a reason. Basketball, I think you constantly see movement, but NFL is really dependent. A lot of that has to do with salary cap. A lot of that has to do with practice squad usage and personnel and all this, that, and the other. So I think it really depends. This is as far as adding is concerned.
Justin going in with a $5 contribution. Appreciate it. He says, tag Crystal. Seriously, though, thanks for the context, especially during a bye. You guys, thank you so much. Justin, Crystal, you guys are bringing it, man. You guys are bringing it today.
Everybody's been awesome.
Really appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Barbara asks, go ahead.
No, I was, Barbara asked, how do you guys feel about the evolution of the show since week 1 and doing a live daily show? Appreciate you guys. It's definitely been, I think we've definitely grown a bit. It's still obviously a relatively new show. It was pretty much week 1 of the season when we started.
Right before week 1.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been good for sure. I've enjoyed it. I think we're all kind of growing together, and I hope we continue to grow together. That's doing a live daily show. There's obviously during the season, it's a lot easier to talk, because there's something going on almost every day.
Absolutely.
I think the real growing pains are going to happen like once we get into the off season, especially there are 2 dead periods in the off season. Like when we're talking like Super Bowl, between the Super Bowl and the Combine, that's a dead period. When we're talking about the gap between mini camp and the start of training camp, that's a really dead period. Like even that's when players and coaches and executives all take their vacations. So those are the times where we're going to really try to, what are we going to talk about today?
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely has flowed a lot better. Now there's been hiccups, of course, with me literally being on the South Side because trying to broadcast from inside.
But see, even then, that's taken on a life of its own, man.
You might as well be in a cave if you're trying to broadcast a show from that facility. That's Biad asks, what's more likely to happen? Matt Canada and the offense turns into the expectations from the preseason, or Matt Canada gets fired before the end of the season? It will be the former because there's 0.000 repeating % chance Matt Canada gets fired at this point.
Yeah.
If he was going to get fired, it would have happened today.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah. That would have happened this week.
No. Eric says, I don't really see a difference between Ahkello Witherspoon and Levi Wallace. Those guys generate interceptions, but lacking cover skills. Do you guys see the same thing? See, like Ahkello versus Levi is kind of hard to do because Ahkello has been so good for the Rams, and it's easy to say now, like, wow, why did we let that guy go? But he really, number one, he couldn't stay healthy here. Number two, I just think that the usage of Ahkello versus Levi, like Ahkello versus Joey Jr., Ahkello versus Pat P, it's just hard to compare because those are 3-4 different corners, like as far as build and skill set is concerned. What's your take on the Ahkello Witherspoon redux there, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, it's I kind of say the same thing. I mean, Ahkello, obviously showed a lot of promise in 2021. He had some really good moments, but just couldn't stay healthy last year. The hamstring really just kind of derailed the entire season. Was never really able to come back and play at 100%. So it's just one of those things where you kind of you turned the page. You were kind of like try to get Cam Sutton back. He didn't come back. The Lions outbid you, so it's kind of like, okay, you got to move on. Brought in Patrick Peterson, drafted Joey Porter Jr. and Corey Trice. Like it's just one of those things where you're kind of turning the page. And when you talked about people that are expendable at that point, Ahkello Witherspoon just became expendable based on a body of work / great question from Robert here.
Let's go to Robert. Robert asks, who do you guys think is better, Deontay Johnson or George Pickens? Okay, I'll start. I've been a Deontay Johnson truther since year one. I liked him coming out of the draft. I liked that he had instant rapport with Ben Roethlisberger. I like that he was a rookie, and the Steelers, not that they're shy from this, he was a rookie that commanded the football, even when Juju Smith-Schuster was excellent in those years that he was for the Steelers. Deontay still commanded the football. He commanded matchups. He commanded attention. Now, George Pickens, as an athlete, definitely better than Deontay from a pure athleticism standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, George's whole aura of even when he's covered, he's open. Deontay doesn't have that. Now, I think Deontay, from a technician standpoint and working underneath and doing more, let me put it this way. I think Deontay's toolbox is greater than George's right now. But I think George's potential is greater than Deontay's.
They're just two completely different receivers. And I think that it's hard to say one's better than the other because what George is better at than Deontay, he's way better at than Deontay. And what Deontay is better at than George, he's way better at than Deontay is elite when it comes to getting separation. I put this in the Deontay Chalk Talk. Allen Robinson is getting the same separation that Deontay was getting last year, but with an average of almost 2 yards more cushion from being pressed at the line of scrimmage at the snap. So Deontay is was pressed more often or pressed more than Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and still got almost 3 yards of separation on average at the catch. And that's also running a lot of curls, a lot of comebacks, a lot of routes that don't give you many options when it comes to what you can possibly do after the catch. So Deontay is elite at getting separation. George is not. But George is also phenomenal. Now, the numbers haven't been great this year, but we also know that can change at the turn of it. George is just, he's a man among boys.
Randy goes, rest of season fantasy, Pickens, Deontay, or both. Depends on the league you play in. If you're in a PPR league, you're going to want Deontay. If you're in a standard league, you're going to want Pickens. Don't forget, when Deontay went down against the 49ers, he was the team's leader in targets. He had 6 targets in that game. Up to that point, he was leading the Steelers in targets. Kenny Pickett is going to look for Deontay Johnson. And George Pickens is now starting to command attention away from Deontay Johnson. Mm-hmm. So I think Deontay for your PPR league is going to be your best bet. Biad asks, should we start Sam Howell or Josh Dobbs this week in fantasy? Flip a coin. If you're deciding between these two, let me put it to you this way. I played Russell Wilson this week because Jordan Love is on bye week. That's the boat that I'm in one of my leagues. So if you're in that boat with me, which Biad, it sounds like you are, flip a coin. That being said, start Sam Howell.
Joe with the comment says Deontay gets separation, but doesn't get TDs. That's not his fault. It's just not. The offense was absolutely terrible as a whole. The offense was absolutely terrible in the red zone last year. They're even worse in the red zone this year. I mean, they're 23% worse than they were last year. That's terrible. And Deontay had a slam dunk touchdown in week 1 that Kenny threw behind him. So that would have been an easy touchdown. So I don't pin that on Deontay. Not solely, but yeah.
Mark says he hears 18, 26, and 88 will be back. How about 78? I think it's trending that way that 78 will be back to play in Los Angeles. But I think 18, 26 being Anthony McFarland and 88 being Pat Freiermuth would be more likely than Daniels would. Biad asks, is John Gruden being considered for OC in the offseason? I don't think so.
I don't think so. And I don't
think so.
And if that were to happen, it would only be because the Steelers announced the interview. That would be the first time we would find out about it, because that would be very, very interesting. Can you imagine John Gruden working under Mike Tomlin?
No, that's the thing. No, I genuinely cannot. Brad asks, would you consider trading for a blocking wide receiver? Allen Robinson has been awful at it. Juju, anyone? No Juju. The reports out of Foxborough are that his knees are shot and he just can't run anymore. And to be honest, I haven't watched a Patriots game and said, whoa, there's Juju. So I don't think Juju. Would I consider trading for a blocking wide receiver? I don't think they would spend capital on just the guy that could get out and block.
No.
And if they really wanted to do something like that, if they felt that the blocking was inadequate from the wide receivers, I think they would just move Connor Hayward out there.
Yeah. Well, and plus, again, once Deontay comes back, he's a pretty decent blocker. He's not great at it. But he's better at it than Allen Robinson is. Not as good at it as George Pickens is. He's not Hines Ward either, but look at the touchdown run that Jaylen Warren had in the preseason, and look at Deontay down the field, absolutely taking his guy out, which was the reason why that run turned in from a really, really good long run to a touchdown run.
Steeler Girl asked, do you guys know if the rumor of Canada not working well with others is true? Does he not take any kind of advice from the offense, from coaches and players? I don't read into any of that kind of rumor at all.
That was so that was reported. I don't remember exactly who did it, but it was reported that Canada doesn't take any advice from that. Now, that at least when it comes to last year, I'm only speaking from my perspective on the beat, is that anything when it comes to the offensive game plan is a team effort. It's not just Canada locked up in his office. Nobody touches, nobody comes in and gives advice. Obviously, Mike Tomlin has his input. He's the head coach. He absolutely has his input. Kenny Pickett supposedly now does have a bit of a say in at least the things that he likes, the things, in terms of like what tailors to his strengths and things like that. But I don't know when it comes to not working well with others. I haven't seen it personally, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. A lot of stuff goes on behind closed doors that we don't see.
Right.
So anything that comes out from that point, unless it's straight up told to me by somebody who's been in the room with Matt Canada, which it hasn't at this point, it's just hearsay at that point.
Biad, yes, I'm aware of the report that you're referring to. I know you didn't just make that up, but I don't see that happening. A few more quick ones before we get out of here. And you all have been awesome. You've brought it today. We appreciate it greatly. We're going to hang out for a little more. What do you guys think of the option for Najee? I mean, the guy has been in an offense with no downhill runs and no lead blocking. He hasn't been able to show his ability, in my opinion. It comes from Mike B21. I think Najee has been put in kind of a tough spot this year. Now, if you look at the metrics on Najee carrying the football, like he's breaking free from initial contact, he's fighting for yards, he's finding ways to move the ball downfield, even when the offensive line has not been doing well with blocking. That has become evident and clear. But I think this offense is moving away from having the Le'Veon Bell / Najee Bell Cal style running back, and is now evolving to using Jaylen Warren. And if you remember Anthony McFarland in the preseason before he got hurt in training camp, he had one of the better camps this year, I think, as far as offensive skill players go. So I don't know if this is I don't know if this is really a Najee thing as much as it is the Steelers are changing their ways of how they use running backs.
Yeah. Crystal coming in with all the membership she has donated. We're going to absolutely answer a question from her. She said, are the Bengals putting fear back in the AFC North, or did they just play the Cardinals? I'm going to go with a Mike Tomlinism here. I'm going to say 2 is a pattern. I think if we see the Bengals terrorize somebody else, completely destroy somebody else, then maybe the Bengals have started to figure things out.
Yeah.
But the Cardinals are also a bad football team. So,
Robert, you are really poking the bears on this one. Who's better, Lawrence Taylor or TJ Watt? I mean,
based off of numbers, I mean, come on.
I can't say I grew up watching LT because I didn't. So I can't really form.
I didn't.
So I can't form an educated opinion. That's like asking Oscar Robertson or LeBron James. Like, I didn't grow up watching Oscar Robertson, but I know LeBron James and how great he is and was. So Chris could give more of an educated opinion on that.
I would probably say TJ, especially with what offenses are doing nowadays to try to defend edge rushers. And how often, now granted, there's more opportunities to get sacks nowadays than there were when LT played. Obviously it was, it's never been more of a passing league than it is now, but just in terms of athleticism, in terms of speed, in terms of strength, I do think TJ is better. And I think TJ is just gonna, geez, Crystal, good God.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's sorry, that just made me laugh. Yeah, but I mean, no, I'm not taking anything away from LT. But I'm sorry. No, and Mike's right. Without LT, there would be no TJ. I'm not taking anything away from Lawrence Taylor. I watched him growing up. I lived in the area whenever he was playing. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Lawrence Taylor. But I think at the end of the day, with the pace that TJ is on right now, we're not just going to be talking about TJ being the greatest pass rusher in Steelers history. We're going to talk about him being one of the possibly 3 greatest pass rushers of all time. The pace that he's on right now is ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, it really, really is. I mean, it's not just, yeah.
I mean, it's argued right now that he's on track to have a better career than his brother. And that's saying something.
Well, and they do play, different positions. So there is a, but when we're talking about, guys who get after the quarterback, TJ is going, like, again, at the pace that he's at, he's already over 80 sacks. Like, he's at an unreal pace right now. And if he stays healthy this year, he could break the record he owns with Michael Strahan.
Yeah.
He
just turned 29 too, which is
he's
even more insane.
He's got way more in the tank.
Eric says, do you guys have a dream job in sports journalism or any other interest that you guys might have? That's a wonderful question. I love that question. I think my dream job changes once a year. Like right now, I could honestly say I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with where I'm at. I am in a city that is treating me very well. I am at a spot that is treating me very well. I am very close to my hometown, and I can go see my friends and family when I need to. I have a relationship I'm getting into, an interpersonal relationship that I'm getting into, a significant other that I'm really having a great time with. And, I'm happy right now. So if you would have asked me when I was in college, 5 years ago, I would have said, I want to cover Major League Baseball, national columnist, that whole deal, outlet notwithstanding. Like, I think it just kind of depends on your outlook and where you're at in life. Like, Chris is down in Texas back with his family, and I can't speak for him. He can speak for himself, but I'm pretty sure he's happy being where he's at right now with his wife and children.
Yeah, it's no. I've gotten a chance to. I mean, even in the few years that I've gotten, that I've been in this industry, I've had the opportunity to do some really cool things. I've gotten to cover, a Major League Baseball beat for 2+ seasons, and then help out on, I've been on 2 different beats actually, and then I've gotten to cover 2 no-hitters, which is awesome. I've got to cover a football beat, for an entire season, almost an entire calendar year, and it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you're talking about one of the, probably other than the Dallas Cowboys, probably the biggest franchise in the world. I don't like when we start talking about other sports, the Yankees and all that stuff, but still, the Steelers are still up there as one of the most iconic franchises in all sports. And to get to cover that team for an entire season, it was awesome, and so, there's, it's so there's, and for me now, I'm now heading into my late 30s. I have, a wife and 2 kids,
Things change.
The one thing that I've really, really learned over everything when it comes to, you can have your dream job. It's cool, but like, there's nothing more important than family. So it really doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, if I have to choose, like, do I want to make like lifelong? The other night, my son played a baseball game and he caught his first pop fly. Like, he's playing coach pitch right now. He's 7 years old. He was at the pitcher position, which, they just stand next to the coach pitch. And kid hit a pop fly. He reaches out his glove and he catches it. And he just sat there for like 10 seconds, just frozen, like, and it's just one of those things. He couldn't believe he caught it. And it's like that memory to me is like better than anything I've experienced in months.
Nothing better.
That is nothing taking away from anything that I've done professionally. It's just, those memories are like the things that I hold dearest. So,
I mean, my best friend is up in my hometown, an hour and some change away. And he just had a daughter last year. She's a year and, she's like 14 months by this point, and they're coming down to visit Sunday on the bye week. So like having that is amazing. Bayad, I like this question too. If you could cover one team that you currently don't cover, who would it be? What would it be? My answer to this, now I'm removing all my fandoms from this in a way, because I'm a fan of a different team in this sport, but I'd be on the Los Angeles Lakers beat like that. I've always loved basketball. My dad grew up a Lakers fan. I always grew up watching the Shaq and Kobe teams, Rick Fox and all those guys. But if I was on that Lakers beat, that would be so fun. I think that'd be killer. But to echo Chris's sentiment, covering the Pittsburgh Steelers is a dream opportunity in and of itself.
It is.
I mean, there truly is nothing like it, and it just builds upon what I said earlier about just I'm in a great spot. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with what I'm doing. So, but if I had to pick, I had a la carte, I could just pick LA Lakers beat.
For me, well, I don't know. I haven't even had a chance to even sit down and think about it. Off the top of my head, maybe just because I haven't covered it yet, and because I'm a fan of the sport. Maybe the Penguins or the Stars, just to get on a hockey beat. I obviously know the Penguins because I grew up watching the team, and I know the team. But also, living in the Dallas area, I know this team as well, quite a bit. And so, maybe those would be pretty cool. And I love hockey, and I know that's covering that sport's a completely different animal. But maybe that'd be cool.
Sticky, I'm aware of this. I have friends that live out in California that also say the same thing about living in Southern California. So if I'm going to consider all of that, then maybe I wouldn't pick the Lakers. But I just think for the sheer history and the sheer volume and the importance. It's on that plateau right now. Like the Lakers are unquestionably on the plateau with the Steelers and the Yankees and the Cowboys and all these other great recognizable brands really across the world when it comes to sports. So that's kind of my logic and thinking there. A couple more here before we get out of here.
Yeah, Steeler Girl brought one up, and this is kind of like something I kind of want to. And again, I'm really not trying to get really bitter here or anything. She said, heard that the players are not happy with Canada's comments about the offense being the players' fault. Now, listen. And Randy actually kind of brought this up. So this kind of all ties together. Randy said, did MLB mess up? The Braves had the best record in baseball and have already been eliminated.
Oh, I'm so disappointed in the Braves and the Orioles for that matter. I am so disappointed.
Well, I'm not, because, after covering the Rangers for 2+ seasons and covering some really, really bad baseball teams, it's good to see that team actually find some success.
Brett, yes, you are behind. Make sure you click live in the bottom right corner and you'll be caught up.
To go to those about the players not being happy. So I think, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I did see something from a particular fan blog. I'm not going to say who, because I'm not going to do that.
No
disparaging.
But
a particular fan blog that actually has a gold check, like on Twitter, so it looks like a verified organization. Say report stuff like that. And like when I say report or write about stuff like that, I won't say report, but write about stuff like that. Just be careful of where you're getting your content from. That's all I'm going to say. When it comes, I am not disparaging any of the bloggers, any of the blog sites. I'm really not, because there's a place for those. Absolutely. Yes. However, those type of sites can, if you rely on those sites for your content, understand that it's coming from a fan's perspective. Fans' perspectives 90% of the time is going to be biased in some sort of way. If they have an agenda, it's going to come through in their writing. It's not everybody. Not everybody who writes for those sites is like that, but it is the majority. And it's just something you have to watch out for. Now Corey's there. Just from knowing how that locker room operates, if players are unhappy with Canada, they aren't letting anybody know about it.
Right.
Or they would be saying it themselves. They're not going to leak stuff. They're not going to tell a reporter off to the side and be like, hey, we don't really like what Canada said about us. They're going to come out and say it themselves. They're not going to do that. And that kind of goes into what I was also saying about like the BBWAA being under attack for what happened in the clubhouse with the Braves and everything like that. Like, journalism itself has never been more under attack than it is now. And it's something that we have all got to, we got to fix it.
Somehow. Let me take this over. Okay. I come from a spot of academia. Okay. I have a master's degree in broadcast journalism. I have a master's degree in communications. I have fully versed myself and immersed myself in academia with this. I was a teaching assistant. I was a TA. I studied under professors. I worked for professors who had worked for MTV, the New York Times, really credible, legitimate sources, right? Journalism in and of itself is under this renaissance period. And what I mean by that is you can get information from anywhere at any time. However, there's two different caveats to all of this. There's social media literacy for one, and media literacy overall, number two. Media literacy being the overarching brand. Case in point, and without getting into politics, okay, is political coverage. Watching one news source that skews Democrat, watching one news source that skews Republican. Now, you can consume what you want, but facts are always facts, opinion's always opinion. The ability to discern facts and opinion, the studies have shown, has become less and less and less. People are taking opinion as fact and vice versa, and that's not how it goes. Now, realizing that I am on the South Side, I am in that locker room, like Chris said. Chris was in that locker room last year. DK's in that locker room. Having people there in the building, boots on the ground, versus, and I can't disparage either, because I used to be this as well. Blogger at the desk who has an opinion and says something, this, that, and the other. It looks like, it seems like, it feels like, they give off that vibe. That is totally different from us being boots on the ground inside the building. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to tell people what to consume. I'm not going to tell people what to watch, except for the Southside Beat, 3 to 3:30 in the Ramon Foster Show at 4 p.m. I'm not going to tell you what to watch. I'm not going to tell you what to read. I'm not going to tell you what to take in. But I will say, overall, and this is study backed up proof, this is academia that I'm coming from, there is a more gray area now than ever about consuming media. And the overarching statement that I could just give to anybody, this is to Chris, this even goes back to myself, this goes to you listening, this goes to my best friend down the block, it's everybody that I would talk to and have this conversation with. It is, be careful what you consume, because sometimes those places are just going to push what they want to push. Sometimes they have agendas that they are not being true to the American people. Journalism, the First Amendment, is supposed to bring everything back to the American people. And it's to do right by the American people. What Chris and I do in a sports vacuum is a service. This is a service industry. This is a news industry. This is an entertainment industry in some ways. Yeah. So you have to be careful to what you watch and what you read. And that's the overarching theme of the whole thing.
So I'm going to continue to settle this. William says, from Jalen's mouth, Kenny changed the play. Jalen also talked about how, whenever he talked about changing the play, you have to look at the entire quote. He talked about what they needed to do up front. Then Kenny clarified later in the week. He said that it was the protection and the route that he changed. Or I don't say changed, audible, checked, whatever you want. It was a built-in play. Said that they worked on it throughout the week. That it was something that was built in case they ever saw zero blitz or anything like that, that they would be able to check to that, to move the protection over, so they would get the protection right and give George the route. It's a built-in play. It's not anything that like Kenny went and he just, called something completely on the fly and it was complete improvisation. It wasn't anything like that.
Corporate literacy also. That's a great point. It's a great point.
And honestly, Spice Creations is absolutely right. People hear what they want to hear. Like, listen, we can talk we can talk at length. We can have the show run for 4 more hours and we can talk about how, only listen to these people because these people are going to believe what they want to believe. They're going to read, I could say, watch out for the bloggers. Okay. Well, not saying don't read them. I'm just saying, understand where it's coming from. And
yes,
people still might enjoy reading that most, and that's fine if you want to do that. Just understand that that's not news. That's not coming from credible sources. And they're not talking to anybody on the south side. They're not talking to anybody, on South Water Street there. Like, it's just not happening. So it's just understanding that. And to clarify, because this kind of goes along with the whole journalism thing. When we talk about like what happened, with the whole Braves Philly situation, when something is said in a clubhouse, like, listen, like we're allowed, like during that media session, like anything that's said in a clubhouse or locker room while the media is in there is fair game.
Yep.
It just is. Now, that doesn't mean that I can go up behind like 2 players that are talking to themselves privately and I can well, maybe I'll catch something here. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you shout something out loud and it's said for everybody to hear, that's been done for years upon years upon years upon years. That's not bad journalism. And the BBWA had every right to back him up, and they did. And so
he's credentialed like that for a reason. That's in the Steelers locker room in a post-game setting, right?
Yeah.
If we pick up on something, we can report it, whether they like it or not. It's like, I understand a player's perspective being like, well, we have to watch what we say in our own clubhouse, our locker room. It's like, listen, there are areas that we can't go to. You want to say something, go to those areas. And we're only in there for a certain amount of time. It's not like we're sitting there from the time that the game ends to the time you guys leave, that we're just there. Right. We're only there for a certain amount of time. As soon as we leave, all game, nobody else is going to hear it. Chris knows this from being in the Pirates clubhouse. Okay. It could be the middle of July, right?
There you go, Brent.
There you go. Brent says,
there you go, Brent. Got to represent my first beat.
You've seen this in baseball, Chris. It could be the middle of July. Maybe, let's, for the sake of conversation, say Kutch goes on the IL with an elbow thing, right? And Kutch could not show up in that locker room when he's on the IL, but for that day, the clubhouse, excuse me, but that day that he comes back, you bet everybody's going to be looking for Kutch. And there's a window that clubhouse is open. And if Kutch doesn't roll through in that clubhouse, down with the Astros too. Cheating frauds. I mean, come on. We can't do the Astros here. So that being said, my World Series pick will be Houston. My World Series pick will be Rangers or Meteor in the American League. And then in the National League, what do we got? Phillies versus Diamondbacks in the National League. How about the D-backs? Give me the Phillies versus the Rangers. I think that would be a fun. No, Spice will not stop. They cheated. They knew what they did. They knew what they did was wrong. They are cheating frauds forever.
No, okay, I understand that, but even after that, they have made it to not including that 6 straight championship series. Like
You're right.
They're a legitimate baseball team. I'm not taking anything away from who the Astros are.
You're right.
I just don't like Houston. I just don't like it's not just a Dallas thing, but every time I've been to Houston, it's not been a good experience. It's not. I'm not saying everybody should hate Houston. I'm just saying I have a vendetta there. That's fine. It's my own personal thing.
Yeah. Randy, good one to leave off of today. Be careful what you consume. That's very true. Extremely accurate.
Yeah.
This is why I love DK Pittsburgh Sports. Well, this is why we love you all.
And we pushed almost an entire hour today for you guys. So
we did. We love you all, and this was tremendous today. Always down to take questions. Always down to get the pulse of the asylum, as it's known as on the website. I think we could carry that term over into here. Yeah. The pulse of the fans, the pulse of the nation, the pulse of the Steelers fans, and just what did they think? What do you think is going on? And we had really good time today and yesterday. If you didn't watch yesterday's episode, plenty more Q&A that Chris and I talked about, answered, etc. Over. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. Of course, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports on YouTube, where you found this live stream. Yesterday's show and the 33 previous other shows are available for playback. Chris and I will be back Monday, and assuming Monday we will have a locker room availability and stuff to talk about from what players have talked about. It would be a
normal Monday if we did, yeah.
Right. We will be back, Monday, same time. The only question mark for next week for us is Friday. We'll iron that out because I will have to be on the road for Pitt.
So final thoughts before we head out.
Phillies versus Rangers, or give me the Meteor.
My final thought is shout out to my kids. They've been home for 6 school days in a row because of fall break. Don't get me started on what fall break is, but they've been home for 6 school days in a row, and that has included 2 late nights because of my son's late baseball games. And you might not have even known that they were here this entire time because they have been 2 little angels like during that time. They have not been 2 little angels the entire time they've been home, but they've been great while I'm on the show. So shout out to my kids.
Well, now they get to go have fried Oreos and fried s'mores and corn dogs and all the
sugar
food
in the world, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to be peeling them. Yeah. And it's funny, my kids are Christopher Keller said I'm in Texas. I hate fall break. It makes no sense. Like I don't understand. It's just like they made the school year longer so they give them more breaks in the middle of the year. Like I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. But yeah, no. And honestly, my kids are more brave than I am because if you've ever seen the State Fair of Texas, they have that gigantic Ferris wheel. I will not be going on it. I just won't. My wife will take them on it, and my kids will both go on it. I won't. I just won't.
Pens Caps tonight. Don't forget about that. Friday the 13th. I will not be watching. I'm not a scary movie guy. Never was. Never will be. Can't do it. Won't do it. Fall break. It's new to me too. So
don't get me started. Don't get me started.
We're not gonna get Chris started on that. We appreciate you all hanging out a little extra with us today. We had the time to do it today, so happy to oblige. Definitely. Thank you all for the super chats, for the gift subs, for the donations. Thank you so much. It is so greatly appreciated, and believe me when I say that goes a very long way. Please remember to like this episode. Please subscribe if you have not. Please share this episode. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Spreading the word is the best way to help this show grow. And believe me, Chris, DK, Dolly, myself, we greatly appreciate it. We all do. I am a Blue Jay on the wall. Listen. Hold on. Let me pan the camera up.
I guess I'm a backwards hat kind of guy.
Look how nice this is. It's nice little canvas painting. They're harmless. It's just, I like it. Bluebirds. I'm down for it.
I'll be a backwards.
We'll be back Monday. We'll be back Monday. Bluebirds and all. Chris will be back, hopefully detoxing from some good fair food. Enjoy that, Chris.
Yeah, that's going to be and then probably plenty of beer tonight too. So
we'll talk to you all Monday.
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.